And for those of you that don't know me, I am Lina Acosta Sandaal. I am the owner and founder of Stop Parenting Alone. Stop Parenting Alone is a parenting education and consultation program. I am in Miami, Florida, but I help people everywhere, where if you have Wi-Fi and a phone or a computer or some form of electronic device, I am able to help out as it pertains to parenting. I have a background in human and child development. I have a background in clinical psychology, and I have a lot of training in neuropsychology as well as trauma informed care. And with all of those things, after doing all of that schooling, and I'm a learner, I decided that all of that information is best served with parents, hence the name of my space, Stop Parenting Alone. It's not I fix your child, because that's not what I do. What I do is speak to parents so that you can be the one who can help and continue to build amazing citizens for our world. So I'm going to share my screen right away, and we can start. So let's see. Here we go. So the pain points that I am imagining, we're going to talk about school, responsibility, lack of motivation. Yes, high school. Woohoo! That happens naturally, but now in global pandemic times and the back and forth between virtual or in person, or all the big shifts that we've been going through, there has been a lot of shift and changes in the high schoolers, energy level and activity level as it pertains to school. We're going to talk about seeking independence and the space and how to help them. Again, this is always a topic for young adults. This is always a topic for high school students. But again, in global pandemic times where there are restrictions, where there are curfews, all of you guys are probably having some big pain points around this. And finally, I want to talk about the social and the romantic interactions. And the importance of it as it pertains to high school kids and this age group. So let me start off with school. And the one thing that I want everybody to kind of really just honor for school year 2020-2021 is that this is not an academic year. Okay, this is not an academic year. Yes, they are in 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. Yes, your 11th graders are thinking about where they're applying and their SATs. And yes, your seniors are actually currently applying to college. However, know that your school district, the college system that is being massively hurt at this time, also knows that your children are in pandemic times. And for all of them, whether they're in 9th, 10th, or 11th grade, this is a generation of kids. This is 4 years of kids where the college boards and the college systems will take into account what is happening. This is a global thing. So I want to bring everybody down and understand that they know it and you know it and everybody knows it and everybody is adjusting. So let me be very, very clear about what I say, because this is important in high school, because high school is official. Finally, you've been worrying about academics and their future their whole life. But now officially, this is a time where the record matters, what they're doing matters. You're not crazy. This is true. But what I mean about this is not an academic year. It's not so much that they don't do the work that is assigned to them. Of course, they do the work that is assigned to them. But this is not a year. This is a year about doing that work through hardship. This is a year of doing that work through uncertainty. And a lot of your high school kids in particular, probably your seniors in particular, those of you that have the 17, 18-year olds, there is currently a lack of motivation. I cannot tell you how many phone calls I got at the end of October, like 2 weeks ago, when a lot of the schools kind of gave, right when you got the midterm report, and now when you got this other report, all of you were like, wait, what? How many of what was given to you for these last few weeks you didn't do? What? How much work have you missed? What? You guys were appalled. Okay, this is what I mean about, this is not an academic year, this is a hardship year. And no matter your age, whether you're 2 or whether you're 82, it has been difficult to maintain a consistent sense of productivity. Every single one of us has woken up feeling productive, or woken up like, I just want to stay in bed, and why do I have to get out of bed? It doesn't matter who we are. And it's very important that if you know that you have had a hard time, that the only thing that has gotten you through is like 3 coffees and maybe a text to your best friend, and maybe scrolling a little bit before you write that email to that client that you have, or before you write that email to the mom that you are also taking care of. Know that your student, your high school student, is also having the same ups and downs of productivity. So when I say this isn't an academic year, I'm not telling you that to, let them slack off and not do their schoolwork. What I am telling you is that it's less about, why didn't you get this done, and more to, hey, this is a really hard time. It's been hard for me too. Like, I had a project due that I needed to give them your input, and then talk to them about, okay, how can you stay connected? How can you motivate? How can you work through the barriers that are keeping you from doing this? Because the lack of motivation that a lot of us are feeling in all the age groups comes from the fatigue of what we have been living. I know it's all over the news, but yes, COVID fatigue is a real thing. And it's actually just fatigue of chronic stress, right? So we're not having toxic stress. Toxic stress is not seeing the end of a stressful situation. We're having chronic stress, daily, all of us, because of everything that has been happening around us, both with the pandemic and now with the political pieces, and for some families, financial pieces, and just like the inability to move as freely as we used to. We have a little bit of chronic stress. And this is causing different types of responses in different types of people. And the number one thing that it will cause is a lack of motivation, right? We will want to get distracted, with Facebook, and our adolescents are getting distracted with the TikTok and the YouTube, and and what is available to us in this cell phone machine, that is a really, really great way to kind of placate this stressor that's coming up. So again, when I say this is not an academic year, this is a how to deal with hardship year, how to deal with stress year. You as a parent, there's less of, I expect you, this is my expectation, this is your job, this is your task. I expect you to pull back on that a little bit. I recommend that you pull back on that a little bit, and start helping them how you have hopefully helped yourself, on how to manage day by day, right? Like the 12-step programs, like they say, the one day at a time, day by day. How are you helping them think about, okay, today I woke up in the lowest mood, my stress is on high, but how am I going to do the 5 things that my history, English, math, and science teacher has given me? What emails do I need to write to get extra help, and extra time? even if they're going to get a lower grade, right? So you, the parent, this is a time, and notice I am giving you a general tip for adolescents in this age group, 15 to 18-year-olds. I definitely want you to start shifting, right? I know you're saying more bad words. You feel more comfortable with that. Or is it just me? I have a 15-year-old. I want you to shift from telling them what to do to speaking with them about what they are doing. That is the number. Like, if you don't remember anything else that I say to them, adolescence is about speaking with them, not speaking at them, speaking with them about what are they doing, wondering, asking more questions and making less statements. For example, um, they're like, oh my God, I totally have a C. And you're like, why do you have a C? And then they're like, I didn't turn in 3 things. Why didn't you turn it in? My goodness, you know better than this. Da, da, da. No. Huh. What happened? Right? Um, you have some screen time restrictions for your high schooler, right? And they're asking you for more time on the FaceTime or for more time on the WhatsApp, instead of saying, no, your time is 3 hours and this is a non-negotiable. Say to them, prior to the pandemic and prior to this time, you had 3 hours of WhatsApp. Why do you imagine that you're spending more time in it? I know for and they're gonna go, I don't know. And you're gonna, no, think about it. You used to be able to be okay with 3 hours. I've never given you more time. By the way, if you don't have restrictions on their individual apps, that's case by case. Okay, it's case by case. For a lot of high schoolers, restrictions on their screen time and their apps, in a way where the machine turns it off, it may not be necessary. It's case by case. Definitely necessary for middle school, because in middle school you're still holding their social media, electronic use hand, right? But in high school is when we start releasing, right? But um, if you, I still have restrictions with my child, and she is 15, and it's primarily because her and her personality and how I am still assisting her and letting go. So in high school, the screen restrictions are really case by case, not like a blanket piece. And it's back to this tip that I am giving you, which is we are talking with them, not at them, right? And if you can't make a case for why you're setting a boundary with an adolescent, it's just because you're afraid. That's not a good enough reason. And that's why they push back at you, right? You're afraid that they're going to make a mistake. So that's tip number 2, that is very general, that can fit into all of these things. We want them to fail and make mistakes while they are home with you. They're not immature adults. They're 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old teenagers that are learning how to plan, that are practicing responsibility, that are managing what values and what friendships and who they want to be in the world. They don't know how. So when you say, why did you think that? If you find yourself judging them from a place of like, they should know better, they probably don't, because they're not adults yet, right? We don't do that to a toddler. We don't expect them to walk. When they fall, we're like, you should know better. That's immature walking. And sometimes we do that with adolescents. So be very, very mindful of when they make a mistake, when they didn't plan well, and not planning well. Back to this idea of school responsibility and lack of motivation, it is part of the skill that they're building of self-awareness and self-management and social awareness, which are, where we want them to end up when they're 24, right? So social awareness, self-awareness, self-management, can you do it 100% of the time? No, it depends on how you're feeling on a particular day. Well, for your adolescent, they're still building the foundation, right? We as adults, we have some sense of who we are, we have some sense of our management, we have some sense of our social awareness, but adolescents are still practicing. So when they fall, it's better to say to them, all right, let's think about what happened. What would you do differently now? Rather than, you shouldn't have done that. That was so dangerous. I can't believe you did that. Because when you state and speak that way to a 15, 16, 17, or 18-year-old, there is no life lesson. There is just criticism and you telling them you're irresponsible. And most adolescents, if they're irresponsible and you're always judging them, when they're naturally risk-taking mind tells them try this risky thing, if you're always criticizing them, if you're always punishing them, if you're never curious about why they make decisions, it's real super easy for that risk-taking brain to just be like, whatever, I'm gonna get in trouble anyway, so I might as well skip school and go to my friend's house, even though we're social distancing, and we're gonna play some video games instead of going to school. Because if you're not communicating with them and rationalizing with them and helping them process self-management, self-awareness, and social awareness, and just talking at them and criticizing them, the risk-taking aspect of their brain is going to make them want to go do the risky thing, because in the end, if you're always screaming at them, I really have nothing to lose. I'm going to get screamed at anyway. Big reason why screaming needs to drop in adolescents, and communication and speaking with needs to increase for 15, 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. That puts me into thinking about seeking independence and a space and how to help them with that, right? So, you know, I don't know about you guys, but prior to, March, a lot of high schoolers were very busy. They went to school, they did their after school activities, they spent time with friends, and then they spent time with us. And as a family, we live in Miami, so a lot of us, had the family gatherings that we all do, especially those of us that, it's a cultural piece of our day to day. That all changed, right? And right now, even though our numbers are beginning to spike again, so it's something to think about, right? They maybe, for a lot of adolescents, what I have noticed is like somewhere between like August and today, their independence and their space, you have opened it up and increased it. What I am seeing as an upcoming pain point is the continual slow rising of the numbers in our community. So whenever you, so some of their independence is going to kind of get pulled back. And for some of you, you may be thinking about that. Like, what does this all mean? Um, so again, my recommendation is to have a conversation with them. They also don't want to get sick. They also have, a brain, and they're thinking about it, right? And it's and ask questions first. Hey, I've been thinking about the numbers in the community. You have had more independence to kind of go rollerblading or riding on your bike or doing your runs that you weren't doing before. But me and your and we've been, the adults in your life have been thinking about, so communicate. But if you take any independence away because of COVID or because of civil unrest or whatever the chances are, do protect their independence and their sense of space. So one thing that I've heard a lot is that a lot of them are just kind of more, the experience for you as parents is that, they're more secluded. So let me reframe that for a lot of you. Think about prior to how much before March, before this whole thing started, right? you really only saw your kid, in the drive, if you were driving them, if they're ninth or 10th graders, right? To driving them to their sport or driving them to their art. And then you probably had one or two meals that you did together as a family. If you are a family that was doing 7 meals out of 7 days during the week, I applaud you. That it is true. Research does show that meals together decreases a lot of promiscuity, drug use. Primarily, and the reason for that, I believe, because the studies just tell us that it decreases it. It doesn't tell us why. But if I think about it in a developmental way, in those meals, most of us are calm, and most of us are just having a conversation with our adolescents. Just talking about music, talking about the past, talking about what's going to happen next week, and what did the coach say. So meals are important. So, but in pandemic times, we, for those of you that didn't do 7 out of 7, which is average, most people were doing 2 out of 7 meals together because of all this after school activities. um, that should be the goal. And the rest of the time, allow them to have this independence and the space for themselves, to watch that TV show that they like, or FaceTime with their group of friends, because that's how they're doing their social piece. Um, and 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 then the only thing you do is continue to have the scaffolding and the responsibilities that they may have. Maybe some of you are asking them to do their own laundry. Maybe some of you are asking your adolescents to help with the cleanup of the kitchen after they've had dinner. Or maybe you are asking your adolescents to help with the garbage. And FYI, we still have to remind them. Right? And also, please give them responsibilities, right? So, and another way to seek independence, and this was before pandemic times or currently. Those of you that that you have the monetary means, this is a great time to open them a bank account that's linked to yours, and to be restrictive about a certain amount of money that you give them a month for them to spend on whatever. That way you don't end up giving them $20 here, $20 there, $20 there, $20 there, randomly. And then you end up spending like $600, and you're like, why am I giving my teenagers $600 when they're not paying rent and they're not paying gas? So another way to help them with seeking independence is sitting down and figuring out kind of the money that they may need a week, and then putting that money into a debit card that you control, and allowing them to mess up miserably, right? The 15-year-olds or 14, 13, 12-year-olds, because in my book, this should start somewhere between 8th and 12th grade, because this is going to happen. You don't want them to do this in college, right? The first month, they're going to spend all the money that you've put in there the first 2 weeks or less, or the first week or the first weekend. And that's one way to teach them about independence, and tell them, I'm so sorry, we agreed that I was going to give you X amount of money a month, and if you spend it before the month is over, you just have to wait until next month, and stick with it. And again, you have to think about what goes in that debit card, right? And it's a great way to teach them budgeting, and it's something that I highly recommend to do from 8th grade on, because you don't want to create a budget for college and then they spend all the money in the first week, and then you're doing that for 3 months. You might as well do it for 3 months when they're in 9th grade, and you're only giving them whatever $200 a month, than when you have to give them a lot more money when they are in college. So, but it's a way for them to feel independent, and think about think about the routine of the house, think about the rules of the house, and wonder where can you be flexible for them to have the independence to do what they need to do. Now, social and romantic interactions. When I have a parenting consultation with parents of teenagers, I always check on the social piece. When a teenager is not social, um, I always want to zero in and wonder the why. Sometimes it's just because they're at a school setting where it's just not their tribe and it's hard for them to find their people, right? And but other times it could be, it's sometimes it is a symptom of anxiety, it is a symptom of depression, it is a symptom of something. So a healthy, well-rounded adolescent has either a large group of friends that they always want to spend time with, or maybe one very like chosen friend that they want to spend time with, but they have social interaction. And when they're not having social interaction, it doesn't necessarily mean that there is a problem. Again, sometimes the problem is environmental, right? Sometimes they're, at some big school that they don't really belong in socially, but they belong in academically, and kind of like that's the price that they are paying. And so, but I want you, besides being respectful of their need for independence and space, I want you to be respectful of their social and romantic interactions. This is normal. This is part of launching into adulthood. When I think about the 15, 16, 17, 18-year old, what I am assessing for when I have a parenting consultation with you guys is, are they launching in a healthy way to become adults? They are not adults yet, right? So how are they managing their independence? How are they future planning and planning their day to day? How are they creating their own sense of values around being a citizen of the world? And how are they expressing themselves as an individual, and building on it, right? Because they're not fully cooked just yet. They're just like dough that it has been mixed together. So please don't make them choose between family and social situations, and please don't make them choose between romantic situations and family. Now, let me clear that up. That doesn't mean that if you have an outdoor gathering with abuela because abuela is turning 75, and your child gets upset that that sucks because I made plans with Natalie, right? That's an opportunity for you to say, okay, this is our commitment to our family, because in our values, our family is important. So maybe Natalie can come, right? Or, okay, I get it. Well, we need to be at abuela's at 7:30. So how about you meet up with Natalie, for lunch? That's what I mean, right? Help them do both. Don't tell them, oh, she's more important to you than us, and we're your family, and you should be loyal to your family. No. Um, Unfortunately, in the adolescent years, we naturally look for our peers, we naturally look for our tribe, and we as parents can continue to give the value of family, but it's important to also be respectful of the importance of both of us. So please work with that, please honor that. And your teenagers, anybody under 18, anybody between 12 and 18, because I'll include the middle schoolers, um, they the one big mistake that they tend to do, since their mind takes more risks and their brain naturally looks at the positives of any choice, they have a heart, they imagine that they have more time and more possibility than they actually do. This is kind of like a little snag that adolescents have. So if you know, right? I want you to help them, but by Thursday telling them, and this pertains to social and romantic interactions, and being respectful of it, letting them know, look, Saturday I have a plan and I'm gonna do XYZ, and I know you may be thinking about meeting up with your friends, but that's absolutely impossible for me to do between this time and this time, right? And adolescents are notorious for making last minute plans, right? So like at 4 o'clock they decide that they want to meet at 7, so expect that, right? And try not to get upset with them, rather teach them, hey, listen, I get it, you're right, you want to see your friends and it's super important, but I made plans to go to Fulanita's house at 8 o'clock. So now we have an issue because you made plans with your. So if you do that enough, if you let them know, hey, Friday night I have this plan, and Saturday afternoon I have this plan, and Sunday afternoon I have this plan, what's going on for you? And you match calendars, eventually with time, you teach them to check in with you, right? And then it's not about you being it's they don't take it as you being unreasonable and not understanding their needs. Now they understand that it's about future planning and about being responsible and about communicating calendar needs, right? So you're teaching them that. They don't know that. They are not consciously being disrespectful of your time. They are learning how to do this. And if you have always been their administrative assistant and you haven't given them the opportunity to work and think about planning, it's going to take a little time to happen. So those are my 2 cents on social and romantic interactions. So we're 30 minutes in. We have another 27 minutes to go. So this is the time when I open it up for questions. Remember, you can raise your hand and ask me your question live, or you can type it in the Q&A, or you can type it in the chat. So let's see. I already have one question, which I will handle first. So this first question is, my 16-year-old had a girlfriend last year and she broke his heart. Now he is very careful and very picky too, but he said that only way to date these days is through Snapchat. Is this normal? Well, okay. So, what a beautiful, when your kids start dating, the rule of romantic relationship is that you have to be willing to crash and burn. I'm going to repeat that again. I'm going to lift my microphone. You have to be willing to crash and burn. So, and a lot of people don't know that, right? Like, no matter your age, right? So there's a rule about romantic relationship, which is, for your relationship to work, you have to be vulnerable. Now, the first time dating adolescents and all of us, um, we did that the first time. We were 100% vulnerable. We handed ourselves over because it was the first time. That's another thing that I want you to hold in mind. So many of the things that teenagers are doing, it's the first. So the first thing that I want you to do with your child is to talk to him about romantic relationship, about that he did not make any mistakes, and if you were, by being vulnerable, by you know being in relationship with someone, that's what you're supposed to do in romantic relationships. You're vulnerable, you share your needs, you share your wants, you give them what they need, you give them what they want, and then you figure out and you compromise how to be with one another, right? And so first have that conversation about that, and then secondly tell him, for, it was your first, and that's why it's so painful. And but if you are too careful with the next one, if you judge the next one based on the first one, then you're not giving the second one an opportunity to have time with you. Right now, Snapchat is just one of many communication tools that kids use. So is it normal that he goes into Snapchat and snaps or starts to streaks with somebody that he may be attracted to? Perfectly normal. But again, guys, the sex talk should be sex and relationship talk. So make sure that the adults around him that he respects and loves, maybe there are family members that could speak to him also about what they think about relationship, but make sure that it's somebody that has healthy relationships, because somebody that is always like not successful in relationships is probably not the best person to speak to your son about how to make this happen. But is it normal to talk on Snapchat and find somebody that you're attracted to on Snapchat? Yeah, it's just this generation's way of speaking to one another. I'm 48, so back in the day, the way that I met people when I was in middle school and high school was to hang out at the bakery center, which is now Sunset Place for those of you that are younger. So today they meet one another on Snapchat. That's how they they have friends in different schools. So yeah, it's perfectly normal, but make sure that you have a conversation about what it means to be in a relationship. Great question. Thank you. Okay, next question. My ADHD inattentive 15-year-old son plays sports and seems to be well liked when we see him with his peers, but outside of his sports, he doesn't seem to engage socially. His best friend is his same age cousin with whom he has a very close relationship. If he's invited to something, he will attend, but he never makes plans and is content to stay home alone. He is very high achieving academically, so he spent a lot of time studying. He has expressed some anxiety in social situations, but he doesn't know. Okay, so great. Okay, so you said some key things in your question. So with ADHD, with a ADHD brain, so that's what I consider like a neurodivergent brain, right? He has the curly haired version of a brain, right? It's just it's not typical, right? So there are a lot of people that manage and live with ADHD also manage and deal with their emotional world, primarily both because our emotions tend to turn on our nervous system and our emotional system. So if your brain is already a little bit out of balance, kind of like an ADHD brain is, because it's so overly active, um, the feelings that bubble up in big group scenarios like what you are describing here is something that kind of sometimes overstimulates him and overwhelms him, which A plus B equals, I'm not going to do large group setting things. So it makes sense to me that his neurodivergent brain, that is a little more sensitive to emotional responses and sensory responses and attentive responses, because by definition that's what's happening for him, he would be careful of large social pieces. And if his inattentive ADHD has some aspects of processing, when he's in a big group, he catches like the third sentence or the fourth sentence or the fifth sentence. So something that's supposed to be fun becomes work. So it makes sense to me why he would avoid it. Now, as a parent, it is great to double check in and say, hey, well, for sure his best friend is his cousin. Awesome. Make sure that you honor and promote and help him do that. He is getting some of the social input and the social interaction in his team sports. Team sports are a great thing. I mean, not all kids enjoy team sports, but it's definitely a very positive thing that they do. Most female CEOs we're part of a team sport. So there's something to be said about that. So know that when I said, hey, be mindful of their social and romantic interactions and the health of them, know that the team sports kind of checks off that list for me if I were interacting. But make conscious to him, um, make conscious to him that, you know, the big social situations are probably annoying to him, primarily because of some of the symptoms of his ADHD, right? And help him think that through. Go to this YouTube page today. I love it. It's amazing. It's wonderful. Every video on it is awesome. Show it to him. It's called How to ADHD. How to ADHD. It's on YouTube. She has ADHD. She speaks to researchers, and all of her videos are super, super duper fun. And I'm sure that there's a video in there about social scenarios. So for now, he has a best friend. He has team sports to be social. He has a purpose, which is his academic prowess, which is amazing for somebody with ADHD. That's not common, so count your blessings. But do make him aware of, hey, do you want to manage this social situation thing? Or is it just not worth your time? Because again, being in a big party or being in a big group gathering need not be the way that your teenager relates. In your example, he's relating well with sports and with the cousin. But How to ADHD YouTube channel, go find out about it. It's awesome. Okay, next question. Okay. And you have a second to the question. What I find myself saying is, why don't you call so and so or invite so and so over? But I don't want to push him. Should I be worried? Don't be worried, and don't push him. Every once in a while, wonder about the cousin if he wants the cousin over, and notice, you know, if he has been with his team, that's probably enough for him, you know, especially on a weekend. Okay. Hi. Thank you so much for your stop. You're very, very welcome. My daughter is going to high school hybrid and feels that the school isn't taking the right COVID precautions. She wants to go back to virtual learning. However, I feel she is going to regress and go back to being more unmotivated and depressed. Being virtual took a toll on her emotionally, and she distanced herself from friends and us. I don't want her to go back to this state. However, I don't want to be dismissive of her fears about COVID. I love how respectful you are being, for your daughter, about her concerns about COVID. So, my solution for this is to sit down with her and say, if we make this decision, um, we're going to make it until this date, right? Especially if hopefully, I'm crossing my fingers that your school allows it. So if your school allows it, you know, have a due date to sit down and rethink about whether or not she's going to go back to the hybrid model, right? And but then when you sit down and have this conversation, you have to tell her these, you sit down and you say, like a lawyer, right? um, these were my concerns the last time you were doing virtual. So these are our parameters. So sit down, all the adults that caregive with you, all of you guys, be very, very clear about what's the expectation, and be mindful to share with her. And these concerns happen because the last time you were in your room, you didn't, you know, spend time with friends, we worried about you. So this is our expectations for you to do this in this way. And then kind of have it be, and then she can say, then let her counter, well, I did that because of this, and I did that because of this. And then it becomes a contract. So be very, very clear about the contract of how you expect for her to do virtual schooling. But back to this idea of having communication. And I love that you're honoring her fears about COVID. And I know that she's an adolescent and she's in high school, and she probably doesn't want you to check in with the school. But I think it would be great if you can speak to a counselor about her concerns, and bring the students' concerns up to the school. And I do recommend that to hear to hear the feedback from the school. So that's how I would handle it. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay, and another question. What is the best way to motivate him to make his bed, pick up clothes, etc.? This has been a battle for the last 8 years. He is amazingly responsible for schoolwork and sports, but he is very sloppy at home. And when is the right time for adolescents to do their own laundry? Uh, Doing your own laundry can happen as soon as they can reach the detergent, they can read, and they can pour the detergent into your machine. The rule in child development is when your child can do it independently, we let them, right? So for some of us, we choose for them not to do their own laundry because it's annoying to us. But if you've waited up until high school, I definitely by junior year, do I want you to start um, making them do the things that they're going to have to do when they're in a college campus, and giving them 2 good long years to mess up terribly at home, right? To be like last minute putting something in the washer at midnight, and you're like, what are you doing? And you're like, I don't have any underwear. And I'm going, I guess you didn't plan well. Right? I want you guys to do that. Please think about, that's with the money, that's with the laundry, that's with teaching them to cook meals, and basic meals. Junior year, definitely, all of those things are really important. If it were up to me, we would have a life skills class in all high schools, but it's not up to me. So with the laundry, you could just tell him, one way to do it gently, is to those kids that do sports, teach them to wash their sports equipment, and teach them not to waste water, and to help the environment, and to wash other clothes with it, and then but do walk them through how to separate the clothes, and how not to like use hot water for things that might shrink, blah 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 blah. So right now he could do his laundry. Now, the bed and his bedroom, this is an interesting conversation, because back to this idea of independence and space, right? So for a lot of adolescents, their bedroom is kind of like their sanctuary, their bedroom is kind of like their apartment, right? And we the adults may have an opinion about their apartment, right? That's in our house, right? But I think it's important to sit down and say, I've been reminding you about your bed and your room for 8 years, and I am wondering what aspect of it is hard for you to follow through, and be curious with him. I've back before, when I used to do family therapy, this was something that always came up in the family therapy sessions. And it was this whole idea of like, the message from the adolescent to the family was always, it's my room, it's my space, it doesn't bother me, it only bothers you. And that was the message that the child was giving. The parent, the parent's point of view in the family sessions was always, but it shows me responsibility, it shows me that you care for your space, it shows me that you're clean. What are you going to live like a pig when you're an adult? And then there was this back and forth. So in those sessions, I always tried to meet in the middle. So I would, so it's a discussion about what are ways that your adolescent is showing you that they are independent, that doesn't necessarily look like the bed. So that's for the parent, right? Like, are you zeroing in on one single thing rather than having a long inventory of what are the other ways that this 16, 17, 15-year-old is showing me that they are responsible, right? Because I want you to think about what is the reason to clean up the room besides it annoys you. Because if it's just that it annoys you, that's not a good enough reason. If it's because about responsibility, then think about where are the responsibility and cleanliness, where are the other places where they are responsible and cleanly? Do they wash their own dishes after they use them? Do they keep a bathroom clean in your house after they use it? By the way, laundry and cleaning bathrooms are great ways to teach them to be cleanly once they go in their own home. And then for the adolescent, it's talking to them about how can your room still feel like your room and me not intrude in it. But how can we meet in the middle? So have that conversation of compromise and really truly check in with yourself about why do we need to make the bed? And if it is about responsibility, be mindful to say to him, I see how you're responsible in 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 places, but what's up with the bed? And 8 out of 10 times in my old family sessions, when I used to do family therapy, um, they um, they thought it was ridiculous to make the bed because they were going to mess it up at the end of the day. um, and um, and that's the bed is one of those battles that I want you to think about. Do I want to win it? Because if there's other places where they are being responsible, either with school, with friendships, with you, with family, sometimes it's okay to let go of the bed. So the broad answer to this question is like, this is so important in this age group to really think about how, it, because it's this age group in particular is the last 4 years of practicing how much we hold on and how much we let go. And in middle school, it's kind of like a 50-50, like 50% of the time we should hold on and 50% of the time we should let go. But in high school, I want you to let go 80% of the time, and 20% of the time you hold on. And that 20% that you hold on to is about safety. And it's about continuing to build their life skills. So that's it for today, guys. Thank you. This is a weekly thing that I do. Um, um, oh, hi, you have a 14-year-old and I would like her to have a conversation. I do not see kids. I only see parents. So there are great psychotherapists that I recommend. So know that I do not see kids. I see parents. So the way that it works is that you have a parenting consultation with me for an hour and a half. You give me some information. We talk it clear. I give you the parent interventions on how to better support a 14, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old. And then if within that conversation, I realize while talking with you, okay, this is more than just you changing your ways, parent, or helping them at school with a school counselor, then I give a recommendation of an adolescent therapist. If you want to skip the parenting consultation and just want to go straight to the adolescent therapist, which I totally understand because you are the expert on your baby and you probably don't need, bossy me telling you, what to do. You could always reach out to Yesi, YESI, at stopparentingalone.com. YESI at stopparentingalone.com, and ask her to give you the therapist that we generally recommend for parents to see for their adolescent kids. So that's it for me, guys. Until next time, if you've loved this free Zoom, all of them are recorded and posted on my website. So go to stopparentingalone.com and hit blogs, and there it's recorded talk, and then you can find your age group. If If you want to speak to me for an hour and a half and meet with me alone, telling me your specifics, your day to day, what baffles you, what drives you crazy, that's a parenting consultation with me. I can do that with you. When we're done, you get the why of the behavior, the solution to the behavior, and a plan for what we just spoke about. And that's $300. That's like my state of the art service. And then finally, I have a parenting subscription with a private area in the website, a private Facebook group, and a weekly call that I do with parents. And that's $49.99 a month. So those are my two services, and that's how it works. So thank you, everybody. Until next time, and check the social media and you will see when I will be on again. And hang in there, and remember, they're launching into adulthood. They're practicing to be adults. So please notice what they're doing and how they're practicing.